Hey, hope you're having a good Tuesday. Thank you for joining me for today's 5 for 5. I'm continuing our look at Jesus' walk to the cross. As we looked yesterday at the Lord's Supper, today we're looking at Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, you read about Jesus there in the garden. And there, as he went to this place to pray, he called his disciples to come with him and to also continue to watch and to pray. Interesting to see that in Jesus' ministry, when he would face some of his greatest decisions, some of the major moments that were coming ahead, or even just days when he had had hardships and difficulties and long days in ministry, he would seek the Father out and go to him in prayer. Well, this night before he faced the cross, as he knew what was coming, this was no different. There in the garden, he takes his disciples. Peter, James, and John go further into the garden with him, and he asks them to wait and to watch, to stay ready and to pray as he goes further to pray on his own. And as he prays, he calls out to him. He says, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me." That's in Matthew 26, verse 38. Jesus is not just asking them to keep a watch, to keep a guard. He's asking them to be ready and pray as they go and wait for him as he seeks the Father. It says, going a little further, that Jesus fell on his face and he prayed, saying, "My Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me." Jesus faced the real hardship, the real difficulty of knowing what was before him. He was anguished. He was despairing over the problem of what was laying ahead of him. In the book of Luke, it says that he would sweat drops of blood. It said that he was just overwhelmed to the point of almost being to the point of death already. Jesus knew the true pain that was ahead of him. And as he asked for God to let this cup pass from him, he's not just speaking metaphorically about some hardship, but truly he knows that it's not just the physical death he faced, but he also faced the cup of God's wrath poured out on him as the sacrifice, the Lamb of God slain for the sins of the world. So he knows the real spiritual reality of what he faces as he faces the cup of God's wrath being poured out on him. It's great to see and beautiful to see the Son going to the Father, calling out and saying, "If there is any other way," but also in the reality of his lordship, knowing that there was no other way. He would say, "Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." Jesus would submit to the Father's will. He would submit himself to the purpose and plan for which he had come to this earth, all the way to the cross. He would set his face completely on the cross and go to it, enduring the pain, despising the shame, as Hebrews 12:2 says, so that he could save us and redeem us from the sin that he had not committed. He would do this 3 times there in the garden, calling out to the Father, "If there be any other way, please let this pass." And 3 times he would get his answer, and 3 times he would submit to the Father's will. In the book of Luke, it says that angels would come to minister to him, to encourage him in that hour, that though he faced loneliness and disciples who couldn't stay ready and watch through that time, that Jesus was not alone, that God would strengthen him for the work that was ahead. And in each one of these, I always find it interesting to see that in the end, as he would stand up, as he would leave the garden, he would be ready for the task that God had called him to. In verse 46 of Matthew 26, he says, "Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." In verse 45, he had said, "See, the hour is at hand. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners." Jesus was ready. Jesus knew what was to come, and Jesus was strengthened for the task ahead. As we go into this Easter week and we get to Thursday night, so often we think of only those 6 hours on Friday or the resurrection morning of Easter Sunday. Don't miss the beauty of what Jesus did on Thursday when he would submit himself to the Father's will for our salvation, when he would determine that the cross was the way, when he would settle that once and for all within his heart and mind, and he would submit himself in obedience to the Father's plan for the salvation of the whole world. It was in that moment there in the garden that Jesus set his face, and it was in that moment that Jesus began the steps that would take him to the cross for our salvation and our forgiveness. Hope you have a great Easter week. Hope we see you on Sunday morning. Come and celebrate our risen Lord. Have a great one.